Well, welcome everybody. It's another episode of the Mile 99 interview series, and this is our 16th episode. We've been going since May in response to the pandemic, and yeah, we're still going strong. So this week we have our guest, Chris Nottingham, and he is going to be talking to us about mental health, physical activity, and just some of the issues around that that perhaps, a lot of people are struggling with, especially at this time. Even though we have up here in Northern California a great opportunity to get outside, it's that first step out the door that can be really tough for some people. So we're just going to dig into some of those issues around mental health, physical activity, and how we can all support each other. Mike, do you want to give us a little information about what we're doing here every week?
Yeah, so Greg said, I'm Mike, and Jessica's here. Jessica Harris is helping us out. She's watching the chat room and watching the Facebook Live. But like Greg said, we started this back in March or May in response to the lockdown. We're all trying to keep ourselves connected, keep everybody running together, because we're all running alone and we're missing out on, the motivation and the stories that people have, and just kind of sharing time with people that are like us. Like I said, Jessica's watching the chat room. She's recording questions. So if the people watching have questions on Facebook Live or in the chat, she will track those. And at the end, we'll get to that. We're also streaming live on the Age Station Trails and Else Facebook page. So I want to give those guys a shout out. They're friends of ours. If you're down in town, they're open. You can buy some shoes, buy a beer, hang out, conversation. So, yep, great. Oh, he's not live.
He's muted. I just wanted to, you guys are looking pretty good, Mike and Greg, from your 25-mile finish at Euchre Bar Massacre. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm going to have to give an extra shout out to my co-host, Mike Harry. And, he dragged me around the course all day, 15 hours.
It was painful. It was a rough one.
Yeah. It definitely took some mental and physical strength to get through that day for sure. So yeah, well, I guess let's just move straight into the guest portion here, and I'll just do a little introduction of Chris. Chris Nottingham, he's a local guy, lives down in Orangevale, I believe. And he's an ultra runner. So he knows, all the suffering that we all go through out there on the trails. But he's also a community builder. And he is somebody who has put together a group called We&gt. And this group is really dedicated to helping people kind of find physical activity of any sort and use it to improve their mental health. And we're definitely going to dig into a lot of that tonight. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I joined the group several months ago. I think I haven't, posted a ton, but I keep track of like what people are doing. And, it looks like a great place for people to kind of share stories, post some inspirational pictures and things of that nature. And we're definitely going to get into that. But I first wanted to just kind of like get a little bit of a background story from you.
Absolutely.
We like to kind of find out, from our guests, like,
where we
going back to childhood,
right.
all that stuff. But, just kind of like getting an idea of, what your early story was, maybe how you got into running. I know you've got a little bit of a story about that, and just wanted to dig into that a little bit.
Yep, no problem. I used to never really like running much in high school. Obviously, it was one of the death races when you had to go out and run the mile and you're forced to do it. Was never a big fan of it. Was always into playing sports, but wasn't a big fan of running. Fast forward to 2013, I had my mom had a basilar tip brain aneurysm that she had an elective surgery on, and she ended up suffering a major stroke during the surgery. And through the process of that, I ended up having to become her caregiver, essentially. And I have for the last 7 years had to control everything that's involved with her, and it's been a long road. And in the very beginning, about a year and a half, once we pretty much knew that she was never going to be able to improve, and was gonna, it was one of those things where I wanted to come home and start drinking all the time, because I started getting into a real big pit of depression. And one day I knew, coming from a family of alcoholism, I knew that that's not the path that I wanted to go down. So I decided one day just to strap on my old ugly ass tennis shoes and run around the neighborhood. And it felt great. It was one of those things where I didn't know it was going to feel good, but it was a huge anxiety reliever. And from there, it just kind of built up. And it was like I think it was a fall when I started running, and it started turning into the winter months, and it started getting darker earlier. And I had no idea about a headlamp, didn't know anything about it. And I'm running around the neighborhood, and I ran into a trash can. It was trash night. And then I'm like, maybe I should invest in some kind of a flashlight. But from there, I ended up going out to American River Parkway, because I knew that was there from my old days of riding my BMX bike and stuff like that. And I went out and started running, and having the childhood memories of riding dirt bikes and being off and BMXing out in the trails. I'm like, I see trails off to the side. I want to go and run off on the dirt. And I went off and ran on the dirt, and it was like an epiphany. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to do this. And I started posting pictures on some of my runs, just on some of the local trails around Folsom Lake and Lake Natoma. And I had a friend of mine, Sam, that I went to high school with, was in a group of people that he was probably about 7 to 10 people that they would go run with all the time. And he's like, hey, I see that you've been out trail running. Why don't you come and join me? So from there, I did it. And it was a year and a half after that was when I met Tammy, who's on one of my friends that's on this call. Their group, a bunch of people that have done running, they've invited me. They're all, come on. And my friend Sam, he's like, dude, you never get tired. He's like, nobody should be able to go out and run a half marathon on trails and not in that short of a period of time. He's like, you need to run an ultra marathon. Like, whatever, dude, it's not going to happen. So that 13 miles turned into 15 miles, then a 20 miler. And then I signed up for Salmon Falls, and it all happened within a short period of time. So I went from a half marathon trail race to a full, the ultra marathon within like a year. And it was from there I was hooked. So I mean, just being out, and for me, it's not even so much the race aspect of it, it's for being out on the trails. It was just a place where I could go and release that stress, and it worked beautifully. And through that community of people that I met, it spread, and I met a bunch of amazingly inspirational people that have become extremely good friends over the years. And it's the entire gamut, from people running 100 milers to people that don't want to run more, and seeing the different levels and the different friends that I've built through it. So in that time, I realized that I was in a really, really dark place, and that running basically saved me from going down a really dark path. And I was very depressed, and I had thought of the whole idea of promoting positivity through activity for the last 3-4 years. And I brainstormed, talked to a couple of friends about it, like, man, wouldn't it be cool to come up with a hat or something like that? Just that whole concept. And everybody's like, yeah, you should do it. But I never pulled the trigger. And it wasn't until this last year, June of last year, there was a horrific car accident outside the front of my work. And for some reason that day, I heard the screech of the tires. I heard the collision, saw the collision of a huge oak tree at the end of my work parking lot. And I set my work stuff down, ran down to the site, and saved the life of the guy that was in his car. His car was caught on fire. And it's a traumatic story, a little bit of PTSD, but that whole experience changed my mindset last year to appreciate life a lot more, not to stress about the small stuff. I've actually become friends with the guy that I saved and his family. And it's one of those things where that was the driving factor that said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I want to do this. I want to do this group. Proposed it to I did it to one of the local running communities, trail running adventures. Said, hey, I was thinking about doing this. If anybody is interested, if they want, I'm a Boco gear ambassador. If anybody's interested, would you be interested in getting a hat? And within a week, it turned into a Facebook group. Within months, it turned into 1,000 people in the group. And it's a group that completely supportive of one another. There's no discrimination. People have expressed complete vulnerability it's a group where to me is amazing. I mean, it's very, very rewarding seeing people out on the trails wearing the hats, people I haven't even met before that are inspired by it, just the whole concept. And it's been an amazing experience. So I'm glad that I finally pulled the trigger.
I'll say that is quite the story. And I do remember on Facebook which group, I can't remember which group, but I definitely remember the car accident, last year, and seeing, I didn't know who you were at the time, but seeing that and just hearing about it. Yeah. I can't even imagine like what that must have been like. So, I mean, but out of that,
the timing of the group, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, here's the first hat order, was like coincided with right when COVID hit. So it was like the worst thing to happen and the best thing to happen, because it was all of a sudden it turns into this whole world where everybody's worlds get turned upside down. They can't run, they can't do stuff, they can't go outside. And we were all kind of able to be there for each other and to help uplift people when they were down. So it was a blessing in disguise. It really did work out to our advantage for that aspect. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, do you interact in ways? Well, first of all, let's just say, like, yeah, there is a Facebook group. There's a website. We have links. We'll be posting those, as part of our normal podcast episode. When we post that, we'll have all the links in the show notes and all of that. But if you go to wearegreaterthanzero.com, there's a website. There's a Facebook group if you search for that. Do people interact? Like normally you'd interact on the trails, you'd go for group runs and things like that, but do you, like, during the pandemic, have you done any like Zoom sessions or things like that, or in other, support each other in other ways?
We've talked about, I mean, like, we were going to try to organize, I had mentioned doing like a trash cleanup type thing to get people, because the trails have been so bad. We haven't really done anything. Like, I've been pondering doing like if anybody gets together and do a run, but I know it's one of those things with liabilities. There's a lot of issues with doing organized group runs. You have to be careful with that kind of stuff. And I know that there's, with other groups being admins and other groups, it's not that we're deterring it, but we haven't done it. But there are sometimes some people will say, hey, I'm going to go out and be going and doing this weekend. But it's more about share your story, share what you're doing this weekend, as more organizing. That might be something going into next year that I might consider doing. This year, it's been a lot. I mean, I will be honest, I would love to have this be my number one priority, but it's like, you have my mom, you got my work, and then and it's like trying to juggle everything all together. But people are going, man, you're burning the candle at both ends. But I'm like, yeah, but I love doing this part. I mean, having 8 million boxes in my house to box up hats, I don't care losing sleep. I love doing it. I mean, it's just the fact that it was so rewarding. And that's one thing I didn't mention on it, that each of the hats, they were technically fundraisers the way we did it. And we've raised over $2,000 for the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. And then on our last hat, which is this one that I'm wearing right here, we had a portion of the proceeds go to the Protect the American River Canyons Legacy Fund too. So it's got No Hands Bridge on it. So it's been one of those things where we're trying to keep my options open as far as where the money is going. But like the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation was something that kind of struck home with me as far as the mental health. And I have a family history with some mental health issues. So it's one of those things where it's kind of hits home. So it felt good to donate money to a company that's very, very well respected as far as where their money goes towards research on mental health research. So pretty awesome.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about that foundation, like how you made the connection and, what they do?
When I was originally going into it, I wanted to look at different possible local areas, but I wanted to look more into the research, because there's still such I'm trying to think of the word. There's so much opportunity in as far as the research goes, and we're still finding out so much more with mental health disorders, that whether it's by being bipolar, people with anxiety, people with depression, there's so many different things that I wanted to put money towards something where they're doing that research to try to keep getting the science involved to improve upon it. And it's the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. It's like 100% of their grants and everything goes towards scientific research. So it's pretty good. I mean, they're very well rated. So that's one of those things. Reading the different research, that's why I chose them. So.
That's great. So they take money and allocate it, it sounds like.
Correct. And we were able to, I worked with them to be able to get on the first series of hats, and then most of the hats on this last series, we have one of their patches on the side. This one doesn't, because this is the Park Legacy Fund. But the rest of the hats all have that Brain and Behavior Research Foundation patch on it as well. And I got approval
there we
from them
go.
to have it on it. So it's pretty cool.
Joseph's showing it off there. That's great.
See, okay, there you go. Thank you, Joseph.
And now for the hats, like, did you say like, are there different runs of those then? And then you like,
We did the first run actually there was 2 that were kind of like stock images that were a little bit edited, and then 2 were at my actual images from the first one. There was a No Hands Bridge one there, and then there was one that was a foggy morning run up in Auburn that I did. That was just it was an epic morning. Ran it with Tammy, and it was just the fog was dissipating that morning, and it was coming up out of the canyon, and the sun was coming through the trees, and it was absolutely stunning. So we have that picture on one of the hats. And this round that we did, the No Hands Bridge hat is one of my pictures from another run, and then also the mountain sunset one is from a backpacking trip that I did up in Desolation Wilderness, and it just turned out really cool. So I like using a couple of my images. It's a little hard because we have so many options this last time to try to please everybody, and we had a running hat, we had a visor, we had a couple different truckers. So the next go around, we're still pondering. We might try to do another one like Christmas time. We're thinking we may do another one at the end of this year. It's just me preparing for what I'm gonna have to deal with come tax time, because turning it from, I had done it as a legal liability company, but I want to turn it into a nonprofit, so I'm doing it right. I had no idea what I was doing, but I went from expecting to have 50 hats to all of a sudden 300 hats. Wow. That was like, whoa.
Yeah.
But I did, and there was a part of me that was like was in fear. What am I getting myself into? But I'm like, no, I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna keep it going. So
that's great. It sounds really fulfilling. Are there any tax attorneys on the call right now?
Yeah, right.
That might be able to help.
If there are, please reach out to me.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'll give you a hat.
and don't reach out with an official letter.
Exactly. Right.
So, hey, Chris, I want to get into running as an outlet. I mean, I think ultra running and trail running and marathons, it all draws something. I think we all need to like have something that we do for ourselves, a gift that we give ourselves, and such a release. I want to chat a little bit about, running and what it's done for you. I mean, you talked earlier about how it relieves stress, and it was during a stressful time, and you started seeing these signs around you about, life is short and you have to live now. You have to be able to, and also you have to support your family. To do that, you have to be mentally well. So chat about that. And I know you have some friends on tonight that all have unique stories. Maybe we could kind of jump into that.
Absolutely. Yeah, for me, I mean, and I even did a little bit of research too. I mean, with the family background that I have with different abuses, whether it be medical abuse, alcohol abuse, stuff like that, I've always been kind of afraid to go towards when it comes to anxiety, go to medication. So I think more natural options. And for me, going into like doing the running, it does. I mean, reading about it, it has been proven to help not cure, but help with anxiety. When you get the blood rushes to the human brain, and they say that it hits like the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis that helps stabilize people's moods. And so you read about it, and it does. I mean, for me, I had some, especially the last couple of months, some hellish days at work, long days. And I went like a fuse is going to blow, and just getting out and not running 900 miles an hour so I don't have a heart attack, but going out and just going out on the trail, it helps. I mean, and there are numerous times, and for me, it's just being out in the beauty of the trails that helps. It's almost like meditative yoga for me. So it's been very, very beneficial. And I know over the years, and there's times where my wife will see it. She knows that I've had a bad day at work, and I get home from work, and she'd be like, go have at it, go do what you need to do. I mean, she's supportive of it. She knows that it helps me with a lot of times, and I know that it's that way for a lot of people. And it doesn't have to be running, any exercise. So just getting out, if it's just walking, going for a hike, riding a bike, anything like that. So, and I know that I have several people that are probably on this call that are in the same boat.
Let's jump into that. Who did you have some folks on the night, Chris, you invited along?
What about Tammy? Are you there? Is Tammy there?
Yeah, we'll unmute. We need to unmute her, so we'll do that.
Mal Bueller? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think we'll unmute her.
I know that Tammy, she's a good friend of mine. We ran our first ultra together, and I know that through this pandemic, she's dealt with whether it be having to help with homeschooling her kids, going through a family, but both of she and her husband lost their jobs during the pandemic. And then she's also been dealing with an aggravating injury over the last year and a half. So everything compounded together. I know she would be a perfect candidate to talk about the importance of getting out there and exercising.
Yeah, I started 2020 with literally a bang. The first day of 2020, I slammed into a tree snowboarding, and really kind of took me out of the running game for a bit. And then as soon as the pandemic hit, I was ready to start running again. I was ready to get out there, ready to start moving again. But how do you do that when there's a pandemic and you can't go out there with your friends, and your friends are your outlet, through so much. So I literally just walked outside of my door during the pandemic, just walked and walked until I could start running again. And finally was able to build up my leg. I injured my leg is mostly what happened in the snowboard crash. So I was able to build it up, and eventually decided I was going to do the 100 miles to Auburn in June as an outlet. But then my husband and I both lost our jobs. So I never actually signed up for the race, but I completed the miles. And after I was done completing the miles, the final 100 miles, I went on to the We Are Greater Than Zero Facebook page and said, I didn't sign up, but I still completed the miles. I still feel like I'm a winner. I did this event. And that sense of community that I got from that group, and the no less than 10 people reached out to me and offered to pay for my registration. They said, you did the mileage, you did the race, I'll pay for it for you. And that all came from just an amazing community and amazing support. So yeah, thank you, Chris.
That's a great story.
That was awesome. I remember seeing everybody chime in, and that was definitely cool. I remember going in the other room and telling Lisa, "Oh my God, Taylor, you gotta see what's going on." And she's like, "That's awesome." She's like, "Honey, that's what it's all about." So that's awesome. And I'm proud of you for making the progress that you've made. So.
Thanks for sharing that, Tammy. I mean, and it just, I don't know. I mean, I think you've taken it to another level. Like, that was one of the ideas we had for just doing these interviews, is just kind of like keep the community tight, keep people interacting with each other. And I think you've done the same thing, and you've built the merchandise side of it so people can show it off and then interest other people into it and all of that. So that's really impressive.
What?
So Krista, you have well, let's talk to Holly. And she's here. She has one of those great hats on.
Right.
Let's chat with her a little bit here.
Hi.
Yes. Woohoo! Nice job, Holly. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm great. Thank you for coming on board.
Yeah, thank you. What do you want to know?
Give a little bit of your background and what you've done, because I know you've accomplished a lot and you've gone through a lot.
So I'm probably the social butterfly. I flutter between all of the groups for the most part. And I've found that being a part of all of these different groups has given me other people to challenge me, or other people to, I've got some of my best friends are from all of these different running groups, and they all help me in so many different ways. I'm new to running for the most part, probably only been doing this since 2013, and I started with a Fleet Feet training. I didn't even think about going for farther distances than a half. And when I tried to do the CIM, my first year was not successful because I ended up with a stress fracture. And then my second year I had tendonitis, but I did it because I was never going to do it again. I'm a one and done girl. So I got introduced to trail when I started getting all these stupid injuries, and that's where I met the trail family, and fell in love with it. And if I could only stay on trail, I would, but I live in Sacramento, so that's not the greatest option. I don't have the access to the trails as much as I would like. But I started training for AR25 last year. I got another stress fracture, and through that, I was able to strength train a little bit more and prepare to come back stronger. And I was coming back stronger. This was my year, man. This was my year. And I trained for it, was super excited about it, did all those runs up to it, did Formidable, did Chinook, which I absolutely love, did Pioneer Express. I was ready. And then COVID struck and it took it all out. But I was determined. I wasn't going to stop. And there was a couple of us that were really looking forward to running the trail. I bailed on that idea because at the time that AR25 was going to run, or AR50, the state parks were closing all of their lots. And I was a fraidy cat. I am one that gets lost out on the trail. Trust me, I get lost on the trail. So I was terrified. Yeah, right. I was terrified that if I tried, I would be stuck someplace. What if I got injured? There's, areas where there's no cell coverage. Would my husband be able to find me? It was just not worth it. And nobody wanted to run. At the beginning of COVID, everybody was terrified to be around everybody. So it was really hard to find somebody to run with. And luckily I had a couple people who would run with me because we were normal running buddies. So we had our little pod. And then I decided I was just going to do AR25 starting. I did the loop around Lake Natoma. My husband was my crew. We traded food at the hatchery, and then I ran back home. I live right by Guy West Bridge. So I actually did, I guess I got my ultra in because I ended with 26 point something, even though it was 25, but I think I got lost someplace and I added a mile in somewhere. And so I was able to finish it. But then after finishing AR25, you kind of get in a rut because we weren't able to go anywhere and we weren't really able to keep going out and traveling, and it was getting probably worse. And my daughter had to come home from college. She goes to school back east, and she had to come home because they shut campus down. And my husband works at Sac State, and they shut campus down. So now we're all a family again in our house, which is wonderful. But for somebody, I worked from home already, and then to have 3 other people working from home at the same time was really kind of overwhelming to share the space. But when we all were able to start kind of being around each other, then the fires happened, and then we couldn't go outside again. And I have horrible asthma. I don't know if you can hear it. I have horrible asthma, horrible allergies. So I'm allergic to everything that grows in the ground, and I get allergy shots to help me with that, but I couldn't go out. So I kind of stopped taking that stuff. And I started running again with another group with Sloppy Moose. Hey, Sloppy Moose. And we would just do these really fun footpaths downtown. We created these little sayings. We all ran Auburn Love. I got my Auburn Love shirt on. We all ran Auburn Love. So we wrote Auburn Love downtown using the grid, and we made little designs. We went and did something for RBG when she died. We did our RIP RBG. So that's kind of what's been keeping my sanity, is being able to run these fun kind of things, knowing that I really would like to go and run something big again, hoping that we can. I still have a desire to go run a 50K on trail, and that's the farthest I want to go. I'm not going to do what Brett does. I'm not going to do what Chris does. I'm not going to do what David does. There's no freaking way I'm doing any of that stuff.
You don't have to worry. I'm not going to run much further than a 50K either. No worries. I'm right there.
Whatever.
Each their own. It's all relative.
You know, Holly, one of the beauties of the shutdown was that it forced everybody to be creative, and it took the pressure off of training for a race and picking a race and picking a qualifier and picking a race. And I think it was a beautiful year of just running to run. It sounds like you did a lot of just creating. Those are the most beautiful types of runs. You're with your friends, something. It's not a distance or some other purpose down the road. It's just for the sake. So that's really sounds like,
fun run. Yep.
Yeah, it's like,
and a lot of the races that we all kind of talked together and picked races that were for the virtual races that did a charity. I mean, all the virtual races that I've participated in since COVID started have been for a charitable cause.
Awesome.
I'm gonna run for somebody, right?
Good.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. So that's a great stories. Chris, I only have a handful of folks here. I see one of your buddies, Brett Lewis, is on here.
Brett is a triathlete. And
I read his profile.
Right? He's a stud.
Well, let's see. I don't know about that, but thanks.
You got a UFO behind you. Careful.
Yeah, right. Nice.
How you doing, Brett?
I'm good. I'm in my car. Just kind of, I said I'd be on, so I'm on, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, you could tell the story of what you were getting ready to do down in Santa Rosa this year.
Yeah, well, at 50, I went and saw an Ironman in Boise, and I just said I'm in. And I guess I was 56 when I did my first full Ironman, and then had another one this year that got canceled. But signed up for Santa Cruz in September. I guess it's September, and then October, Sacramento, California Ironman full. So excited about that. But it's been a hard year. I mean, training for that type of distance, it's hard to not know if you're on or off. It's really been difficult with COVID.
Yeah, it seems like with those races, you have 3 different skills you have to harness. I mean, swimming, I can run all day long, but I can't swim for nothing. So is that a challenge to balance all of those? And
well, it is when you're trying to convince yourself that your race is going to be on. When you know it's on, and we were doing 10-hour days. You have the goal at the end, and somebody was talking earlier about not running for fun. And you know what, I think for me, if I don't have a race on the docket, it's hard to stay motivated.
Yeah,
for that type of training.
I agree with you there. I know it's hard to have a race on the books, but I agree with you. Having something to reach for during these trying times, having some goal set somewhere, it's just, for me, it's key as well.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. You get 30 days where you're great, and then you're really going to happen because everything else is, all the other races were getting canceled. I
think we're losing you, Brett. Let's hold off on that. I think we're losing his signal here, Chris, and maybe we can jump over to
2000.
Let's jump over to Allie and see if we can get a better connection for Brett, because I do want to hear how you and Brett got connected, but we may have to come back to Brett when he drives to another part of the block there.
How's it going, Allie?
Good. How are you?
Good. You made it. Thank you.
I did. Thank you for inviting me.
How are things going?
Good. Absolutely awesome, actually.
Allie and I go back to when I was a fresh newbie runner, and you were pretty experienced, but you joined up in the group of all of us old fogies because you thought we looked like we were fun. So
well, it turned out I was right.
We've been running together, and I ran my first ultra with you too.
Yep.
So
yep.
So how has this affected you through the whole pandemic? Because we've only run with each other a couple times since.
Yeah, I've actually mostly been running by myself when I do run. As you know, I ended up taking a complete leap of faith and buying a house as soon as the pandemic started. And so I moved over to Pilot Hill, and there's trails, of course, everywhere, 2 miles from Cronin Ranch. So I think as far as what everybody was talking about earlier, I think the pandemic is kind of a blessing in disguise as far as allowing us to kind of find our love for running again, because I know for me, like, I got burned out for a little while. When I met you, I just ran my first 50 miler, which was AR50. And I think since 2015, I ran, 850Ks and then 150 miler or 950Ks. And I just kind of got burned out for a little while. And this has allowed me to go back, and I'm sure you saw my post on Facebook about me being a bird nerd and counting all the different bird species out at Cronin Ranch again, and finding my love for it.
Better than looking for ticks.
I look for those too.
I was gonna say, I forgot that this whole thing, the pandemic, started the very first weekend. I was supposed to be pacing you down at Muck that very first weekend.
Yeah,
so
it did put a huge damper on my plans, kind of like what Holly was saying, is you get super excited to go do something and you get, all psyched up, and it is a lot easier for me to train when I do have a race to look forward to. Just as far as ramping up miles, right now I'm at like 5 miles, I think, and that's fine. But I was signed up to do my first 100K this spring, Leona Divide. And so leading up to that was you pacing me for Muck. And yeah, that didn't happen. None of those happened. but it's definitely, it has allowed me also, my other endurance sport is of course my horse. And so it's allowed me to keep him in condition and myself. And like I said, I mean, the pandemic kind of put a damper on any kind of goals or having anything to really train for. But at the same time, it just helped me kind of reconnect with why I really liked running other than when I was signed up for a race.
Absolutely. It's a great point. Good
Yeah.
seeing you.
Yeah, I mean,
good to see you.
that's a great thread throughout all of these things, I think. And I think that's been definitely the case for me as well, is just having that freedom, I guess, in a way, to just take the pressure off yourself. You know, I don't have to be worried too much about, you know, training blocks or any of that thing. And just speaking personally, like Mike and I have spent many a weekend out in the North Fork Canyon exploring trails that we probably never would have gone on because they aren't really like trails you would train on necessarily. Like they're usually not very runnable. So unless we were going to take, you know, a few months to just go hiking, we probably wouldn't have done it. And it was kind of like a new thing for me and maybe for him too, and just a great opportunity. So it's like, yeah, trying to find that positivity, I guess, where possible. It's not always possible, but where possible, you know, to try something new.
Absolutely. Is Joseph on?
I think I saw him. Oh, there he is. Yep.
Joseph is here. Yeah, I'd like to have Joseph on.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Chris, how's it going?
What's up, dude? How's it going? Good.
You know, all things considered, 2020 is what it is, but it's not going too bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing as good as could be. One of these days, I'll get up there and go running with you because that's.
Please do.
I want to come up in your backyard. So, and thank you tremendously for your support along the way. I appreciate it. You've been a very big supporter of it, the whole project, and I do appreciate it. So
I love what you're doing, so happy to do it.
Where is up there, Joseph? Where is up there?
I have the terrible misfortune of living in Ashland, Oregon.
All right.
Terrible misfortune.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
Trails out my backyard. It's
geez,
a nightmare.
So you ran Western States, what, 2018, 2019? 19, yeah. Yep. So you completed that, and you've had a lot of races that were on your calendar that got ruined this year too, right?
Yeah, I was supposed to do Western again this year, actually. So that got nixed. Supposed to do Wasatch, that got nixed. Supposed to do Tahoe, that got nixed. So I had 300s on my calendar and a couple of Lake Sonoma was on there for a 50. Yeah, it kind of all got washed out. So I had a lot of big things planned and not a lot of them happened, obviously.
Well, and then you guys have been dealing with the fires as well up there. So it's like we get fires and you guys are getting bad fires, and it seems like all of our smoke blows right into you.
Yeah, we get your smoke and our own. I mean, Ashland actually started on fire about a month ago. So the town itself erupted in flames not that long ago. So yeah, it's been a rough summer for a multitude of reasons. And then you throw the pandemic on it as just an extra layer. It's been rough.
Right.
Did that Pine to Palm happen this year? Was that postponed as well?
That was postponed. He did a virtual version of it, which was actually kind of fun. So he gave everybody 2 weeks to cover the distance, but he did daily contest with it. So Hal Kerner is the race director of that. And they would do things like, draw me something funny on Strava and win a prize, or who does the most miles on the first day, or whatever it was. So there was a lot of swag attached to it. And he tried to make it more fun than just everything's going virtual these days. I put on a few races myself and they're all virtual. And, he mixed it up a little bit. So the race itself didn't happen, but we still had, I think, about 100 and some people complete the virtual version. So it still got some draw, and he donated a lot of the money from that to some local charities as well.
Oh, that's great. That's good. And so Chris, how do you know Joseph? How are you guys connected?
Joseph and I are both Topo Athletic ambassadors. We both like the same shoes. So we've met each other, and I've been following Joseph on Instagram, and for the last couple of years, finally, got to see him finish Western States, videotaped him finish. He was kind of in a rough spot afterwards, so I didn't go up and
It was not pretty. It
was not pretty. I said I almost had to go up and check his pulse laying down there afterwards, but I just let him be. It was pretty freaking amazing and very inspirational, and we have chatted briefly over the years, and we've kind of made the connection that one of these days we're definitely going to have to run together. And I know that my wife and I definitely want to get up to Oregon. So once we get in get out of this pandemic, we're going to head up there one of these on a vacation. So
always have room for you. Please do.
Perfect.
So I guess a good question is for Joseph, or, what is the why, like running, what does it do for you? And what's the, like, why, what does it do for you, I guess?
I mean, kind of the thread you've been hearing from a lot of people is it's a catharsis, right? It's a way to process things. I mean, for me, it's, somebody had mentioned earlier that, their partner knows when they're having a rough day, get out the door. I think, that resonates with me. My wife's kind of the same way. My boss is the same way. My boss has actually canceled a meeting and sent me running when we've been on the road together, because she can tell that I'm just getting to the point where I'm not myself and I need that. I've had a rough last almost decade. I've lost both my parents. I lost my last remaining grandparent. I mean, I lost my dog. My life became a country song, frankly. And so through all of that, I mean, miles and miles and miles of just alone time, friend time, just ways to kind of grieve, process, and kind of move through some of the emotions that come with all of that and come with just daily life. And then obviously more recently, it's the emotions that come with living in a pandemic and living in the environment that 2020 has given us.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, can't wait to get up there. Likewise. Even having you come down here, we can run. It's not like we don't have trails down here.
That's true. I hear you guys do. Yeah.
Right. We have a really long one that you're going to run again. So
yeah, I'll see you next year, if not sooner.
Right. Well, thank you, Joseph. I appreciate you coming on.
Of course. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, these stories are really good, and they kind of, inspire me to share a little bit too, if you don't mind, Chris. I also come from a family with a history of mental health issues, anxiety and depression primarily. And I've, experienced those in my lifetime, pretty frequently. And especially 4 or 5 years ago, I was going through a real rough patch. I was out here kind of as a new person, didn't really know anybody, and just was having like a really hard time with a lot of things. And somehow, I'd been getting into trail running for a couple of years before I moved out here from New England. And then finally found like the Folsom Trail Runners, and they were doing a weekly run down here off of the Stagecoach Trail, and ended up meeting my co-host, Mike Turner, here. And luckily we had about the same pace going uphill, I think, and just started chatting. And I don't know what we did after that. Maybe we got together for a run at some point. The details are hazy, but what I do know is that, that was a rough time, and I was seeking friendship and companions and just people I could talk to and that sort of thing. And running, just like in a way that I had never experienced before, like brought me into this community. And, we've heard the cliche, like, you talk about things on the trail because you're out there for 7 hours with somebody, or however long it is, an hour, half hour, up to, ultra distance duration. And you really get to know people. And I think that's been one of the most powerful things for me. And then that issue of just, when you are feeling really bad and really low, and you're just having a hard time getting that first step out the door, having those people in your life that call you and say, as Mike did a few times, get off the chair, get outside, you need to do this now. And it's that accountability, that put me out there. And it was really something I needed right then. And for anybody that's going through that kind of thing right now, and they're just having a hard time, they know it's a good thing for them, but they can't get out the door. I think, Chris, like what you've done with the group and having all these people, I can just feel the support here on this call, having that accountability and those people that will lift you up and say, come on, you got this. You can just take that one step, and I know it's going to be better. It's invaluable. Like, I can't say it enough.
It's very, very true. I mean, my group of trail friends have become family. I mean, in a sense, there's some, I've built really, really good relationships through all of it. And it's been, and every single one of them supportive of one another. So it's been very, very cool. And as I tell people, that it's like you get that whole endorphins going and everybody's excited about running, and it kind of becomes your whole world. But it's like, for people that don't do it, some people think you're crazy for running. It's like, you don't understand the community that has built throughout it is one of those things where it's like, was in such a better place mentally than where I was prior to. And everything, all the whole scene together. It's just, it's a wonderful thing. So
Yeah.
You know what I want to add is that I think when you run with somebody for so long, you know their personality. And so I knew Greg well enough to know at some point you got to know when to push your friends. You got to watch out for your friends, recognize when they're having one of those days, and
absolutely.
physically push them out the door and tell them you're going to get out the door and run. So it's not just about our own mental health, it's about
Correct.
our neighbor's mental health and about recognizing when someone needs to be pushed.
Right.
You physically make them go run. And that is the best thing you can do for somebody, is just push them out there and get your shoes. We're going to go run at 5:30. It's going to happen.
It's true. A lot of times people will be afraid to do that. And a lot of people will be afraid to reach out. And I know that there's, even with some of the comments within the group, sometimes you get somebody that has exposed their vulnerability, and the amount of people that are saying, if you ever need somebody to touch or talk to, just reach out, more than willing to help them and get them out. And it's like you said, you can see when your friend is down in the dumps or something's going on, you read it, get them out. They may not ask for it, but then they'll be thanking you for it afterwards.
Yeah, you can just say, you can complain on the trail, but for
Right.
now, go run.
Right. Oh, people have heard me complain more than enough times. Probably why I've been running solo lately. They don't want to run with me anymore.
I can't tell you how many times I've apologized to Mike at the end of a run. Like, sorry about all that.
You're all, settle down, Tiger. No.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, if somebody can take that in for you and kind of relieve that weight off of your shoulders, you know that you're going to be there for them the next time when they need it. You know, it's a two-way street, right?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I think is that all the people that we had on there?
No, actually, Brett has got a new connection. He's on a different part of the board, maybe in a different car.
No, same car. Your phone's got to be charged, right? Yeah.
So let's get back into what I don't know how Chris and Brett know each other, and also Brett, kind of how you got into Ironman, and what is, how's coronavirus? Just kind of give us a rundown.
I started with some half marathons like Urban Cow. I've done 6 CIMs in a row, and it's just like tough to train, and that's why I thought Ironman was just stupid. So that's why I ended up doing that. So I don't know. I know Chris from his site. I mean, We're Greater Than Zero. It's just it's a positive, uplifting site, and I've met a lot of friends on there that I have virtually, not face to face. But it's I don't know. It just encourages, I think, us all.
That's great. Yeah, it's good to be I like the idea of Chris, you're saying, just encouraging each other, inspiring each other, sharing stories. And we can't get together right now. We can get together in small groups, but just trying to, like with our show as well, it's about keeping the community engaged, together, inspired, and in this case, keeping them healthy. I think the lesson learned is to keep an eye on each other and love each other, and just try to really look out for everybody.
Absolutely. I saw Melanie's on there. So that's the other one that was going to be on. Is Melanie here?
Do we see her, Jessica?
Yes, I'm here.
Yay. There she is. How are you? How are you doing? Hey, nice shirt. There's 2 of you guys that have the shirt on. Nice work. So Melanie and I go back. How many years has it been now that we?
I know it had to have been before the first year I ran CIM, and that was in December of 2016. So, and I don't even know how we ended up following each other on Instagram. I have no clue.
Because we're like what, Boko and Topo ambassadors, right?
No, not Boko.
Just
Topo.
Just Topo. But yeah. We were out cheering you on at CIM.
Yep, I think you guys were around mile 7 or so.
Correct. It's right down at the end of our street. So we were looking out for everybody, and we saw you running by. So cheering.
Yeah, I think that was the year I developed a migraine at like mile 12 or 13 and pretty much threw up the rest of the race, but I finished. And it's still my favorite marathon. So I'll be back next year, run it again. So
right. So yeah. Melanie, I see that I do have somebody else that's on here too. So I'm all woohoo. Everybody's being so supportive. But now Melanie is she is a superhero. I mean, she and my wife are very similar. They both have dealt with autoimmune disease, and she has done so much, Melanie has, to improve upon her body fighting against her all the time and done different things. She has gone from, you could describe what you've done, the accomplishments that you've done, the different races that you've done, the Ironman stuff that you've completed.
Half Ironman.
I know the half Ironman. Sorry, the
Next
half.
year,
I can't say full. I
Coeur
didn't want to like belittle you by saying only half.
No, I know.
But the stuff that you do constantly, where you're like my wife, where your body's trying to beat you, but you refuse to let your body beat you, and you've accomplished some amazing things. And I know that it's been the same thing. You had some pretty important races and in the middle of this whole pandemic that have affected you too, but you're out there still kicking butt, and you're over at Carson City and you're having to deal with smoke. So you've had all sorts of threats to deal with as well.
Training for your first 50 miler and having to run everything on a treadmill is awesome. It's really awesome. My coach is like, look at it as good mental fortitude training. And I'm like, I'm ready. Like I'm ready. Doing up 16, 18 miles on a treadmill. I'm like, ugh. Not my idea of a good time. I'm an all-weather runner. I love running in the snow, the rain, you name it. And so it's been really hard being stuck on the treadmill, but it was either that or not run. And, for me, I mean, I'm training for something, but running is very much almost medication for me. I mean, I was on antidepressants from 21 until about 39. And I started running, and that was in, I think, 2000. I started running in 2011, and about a year later, I was able to get off my last medication, which was antidepressants. And I'm a psych nurse, and I know that not everybody can do that. I know that there are people that have true chemical imbalances that have to stay on meds for, however long. And I get that. But a lot of the mild depression and anxiety that we see in today's society can be managed with physical activity. I'm living proof of that. I was depressed. I was anxious. I didn't sleep well. I had a drug and alcohol addiction. I mean, I was found unconscious at work in the unit that I worked on, and that was really awful. But I asked for help and went to rehab in 2008, and I ended up going back to work as a nurse in the rehab that I went to. So it's like home to me. Psych nursing is like home, and one kind of feeds into the other. I'm able to have empathy for my patients that have chronic pain, which leads to depression, and also those patients that suffer with drug and alcohol issues. I come from a long line of addicts. My mom was a drug addict. My dad's an alcoholic. My sister's an addict. My Nana was an alcoholic. My two cousins are addicts. I think I'm probably the only sober one in my family. And it's I wouldn't be here, if I hadn't gotten sober. But running kind of added another element to my mental health. Getting sober was great, but the running keeps me so balanced. It just keeps me sane. But like with your wife, I have to work really hard at balancing how much I run and listening to my body. And so I've had to learn the hard way that I always say when my body whispers, I have to listen to it, because otherwise it's going to scream at me. And then I'm going to be out for weeks with a flare up. But I look back at when I started running, I didn't ever want to run anything longer than a half marathon. And to be honest, I wasn't even a runner. I couldn't run more than 30 seconds and would throw myself down on the ground and cry and say, yes, spoons, you get it. The spoon theory. For anybody that doesn't know, Google the spoon theory. It's fabulous. It's a great way to explain to people why you're too tired to take a shower, after work, because you're out of spoons. But when I started running, I had lost a friend to suicide. And so I signed up with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention to run the Tinkerbell Half Marathon. And of course, my husband was like, "You're insane. You hate running. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, it's not for me. It's for Johnny." And I finished that half marathon. It was the most awful experience of my life. I was in miserable pain from mile 8 on. I said, "I'm never doing that again." And I was signed up for 4 more 2 weeks later because I don't do anything in moderation. That's the addict brain. but I never wanted to run. Somebody was saying they're never going to run longer than a 50K. Watch what you say. Watch what you say. Because I said I will never run a marathon when I started running. And then 2014, I ran my first marathon. I've run 6 road marathons. I ran the Folsom Lake, the Canyon Meadows marathon over in the Bay Area, which was great. It's an awesome race. And then I came and did my first 50K at Folsom, which was an awful, horrible experience. Not the race itself, just I had some physical issues going on that was horrible. And so after that, people said, oh, when are you going to run, whatever distance? I was like, never. And now I'm training for my first 50 miler, which was supposed to be Tunnel Creek, but they've limited the runners to 50 runners per distance. And I don't really want to be out there with so few people. So now I'm going to Brazos Bend in Texas and running my 50 miler in December, and it's flat, flat, flat. And I'm not really looking forward to it. I love hills. I run Tahoe trails, but it's a good mental challenge for me. And it just keeps me out of trouble. Like Chris, you were saying, your wife can tell, like, you need to go for a run. You've had a horrible day. I went for a run on my lunch hour today because it was just kind of a pretty horrific day at the clinic. And, while I'm dealing with my own mental health stuff, I'm dealing with my patients who are going through, this, and they're really struggling. And so I've got it from both ends. And so, the running is just, it's great medication. I tell all of my patients, I don't care what you do, just go move for 30 minutes a day. That's really, you don't have to go run the Boston Marathon or what, just go for a walk for 30
Physical
minutes.
activity. Yep.
That's it.
Melanie, and there's some great stories. And first of all, Texas, I did a race in February. There's lots of routes. There's lots of challenging. Texas, don't let it fool you.
Keep the feet up high. Yeah.
I did the Rocky Raccoon, and I was sick of roots. But and I'm talking back to you talking about addiction, and I have addiction in my past too. And one thing I was curious about is that I think as a former addict, you have to be careful not to. You were saying you got to listen to your body. Don't replace running. Can be an addiction. I mean, you can just run all the time. You can not go to work and not have your relationships go to in a hell in a handbasket. So running itself can also be an addiction. So,
yes,
finding the right balance. Yep.
Yeah. How do you find that balance? You said listen to your body. How do you find the balance between?
I actually have a fabulous coach that I work with. I've worked with her since January of 2014, and she really helps. She comes from a philosophy background. She was a philosophy professor. She's an ultra runner herself. She's a great athlete. And so she sees I get really excited and I want to do everything and I want to do this and I want to do that. And she doesn't tell me what to do. She just makes me think about things a little bit, and it's like a timeout period, before I go signing up for 800 million races. And, cause I have a tendency to do that. I've promised her next year I'm only doing 2 big races, my Ironman and CIM. That's it. And she laughs because I'm sure it'll come up.
She's all, yeah, right. No,
yeah. So it's really having an outside voice. I also check in regularly with my LADC, my licensed alcohol and drug counselor. Him and I went rounds the first few years I started running because he kept saying, you're replacing one thing with another. We went back and forth, and he finally actually this year said he sees now how beneficial running is for me, because it's really helped me in all aspects of my life. I'm able to stand up for myself and advocate for myself, and I don't give in real easily. I don't throw in the towel real easily, which helps me at work. So they just kind of complement each other. But I have to have other people to kind of be my voice of reason, because if I'm just left with up here, this is a really dangerous neighborhood for me to hang out alone in. So I'm always checking things with others, and it's not that I'm looking for, outside accolades or advice. It's just, I need to hear other people's ideas about things, because then I can go home and think about them and go, yeah, this is a little bit, I'm overdoing it. I did let running take a front seat in 2014, I stopped going to meetings. I stopped working with my sponsor and I relapsed. And it was really horrible and really awful. I finished the Portland Marathon and quit running for 2.5 months because I was so depressed. And my coach reached out to me and said, something's going on. I haven't heard from you. I don't want to bother you, but I want you to know I'm here for you. And I told her what was going on. And then that night I called my sponsor. I told my husband. I went back to meetings. And so I'm coming up on 6 years. You know, I relapsed after 6 years. And that taught me a very valuable lesson that, you know, sobriety's given me all these things, but if I don't put sobriety first, then I lose all those things. So it's a tricky balance. But you know what I find, especially in the ultra running world and like Ironman world, is there are so many of me running around. There's so many people that are in recovery. It's insane. I mean, and I know there's the other end of it too. I have friends that drink a lot and smoke pot on the trails and do whatever, and that's fine. But I'm amazed at how many people I've run into that are in recovery, and this is kind of it is their drug. It is their drug. And if I got to pick one or the other, I'm gonna pick running versus, you know, what I was doing before.
Yeah, it sounds like a great lesson. So, I mean, you know, one thing you said, your sponsor called you after 2.5 months. So again, look out for people you love. You know, make the call. Don't just assume they're fine. Reach out to someone that you haven't heard from, especially during coronavirus right now. Reach out to people because, you know, it's just a good lesson. Just making sure everyone's okay, because this is hard times. This is, people lose their jobs. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Stresses, relationships, jobs, I mean, money, you know. So I definitely, it's time to stay connected. And Chris and Greg, you can jump back here and, but Chris, is your website to say keep connected. It's really a great time for that. It's an important time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just yeah, I guess we're getting to the end here, but I did have just one final question for you, Chris, which was, you know, pie in the sky at this point. Like, what would you like to see this group do? Where would you like to be in the next few years if you had like your wildest dreams?
It's kind of hard to tell because it's whether, I mean, I would like it to continue as it's doing right now and not have it go too big because of the intimacy that's there, the close knit of everybody. I don't want to have it get commercialized. So I like it more as a support group that's like this. I mean, it's one of those things, we are talking about doing shirts. People want shirts. And then because the people like supporting it, the people like, I mean, the hats right now, I mean, there were people in the very beginning that said they got into the group because they wanted the hats, but then they stayed because of everything that's going on in the group. And that's, to me, that's what meant more. I mean, it's not all about the hats. It's about the support group that's there for each other. But I mean, I've been in tears before on trails when all of a sudden I'm out running with a couple of my friends and then I see 15 other people that are scattered about, not even running with each other, that have the hats on and running into people I've never met before. It's really, really cool. And there's hats in New Zealand, there's hats in Germany, there's hats on their way to Sweden right now. So they're all over the place. I mean, they're scattered all over the US too. So it's pretty cool to see posts in the group of people that are back east in the Midwest, stuff like that. So it's pretty darn cool. So to have my little pipe dream turn into something that's like this. I mean, who knows? I mean, I'm not giving up on it. That's for certain. And how it grows, we'll monitor it and see how it goes. I just appreciate the help and the support that everybody's done. Everybody's been a huge help to me as well. So.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a real special group. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody that showed up tonight. And that's a testament right there to what you've built. You know, right. The fact that you called on people and they came and shared their stories. And I just want to say to every one of you, like, thank you for the honesty and the vulnerability in this forum. I know it's not always easy to talk about these things, but, you know, especially with our guest a couple weeks ago, she talked about some things in her life, and it's important to vocalize these things and let people know that, you know, they're not alone. They're going through similar things. And when we tell stories like this, it might tell someone else, hey, I can reach out to somebody, I can get help for this thing. So it's really important. And I just want to say thank you again to everybody.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Well, thanks again, Chris. Really appreciate you showing up. Everybody definitely check out wearegreaterthanzero.com. Check out the Facebook group. We'll be, as I said, I think in the beginning, or maybe not, but we'll be, as we post the podcast episode, we'll include links to everybody that was on here tonight that supplied us with some Instagram links and such, and you can follow them and follow the group and get involved. And we'll definitely be looking for a hat order at some point, I think, later this year, you said?
Yeah, possibly. Kyler, who's the design guy, and we both kind of took a break here for a while, but we've been pondering possibly doing one for like one more for the end of the year. So
All right.
everybody, like Brett just put on there, that ultra runners have 1,000 hats, that they're going to want more.
Yeah, well,
that's true. I have about 60 in my room, so yeah,
exactly.
I get it.
Best place to learn about that, I'm guessing, then, is to join the Facebook group and get involved.
Facebook group is the best place to keep involved, to stay on top of all that. The website is more, it's not, we don't run it like a traditional website. It's mostly just set up and active when we do the fundraising, because that's how we have it set up for the fundraising. It's not just because we're not really running it like a business. It's just for when it's the fundraising portion of it. But the most interaction and when you will see stuff for the hats will all be done through Facebook, and then you'll have all the connections like, okay, we're ready to go live. So
excellent. Great. Well, everybody, definitely join up with that if you're interested, and keep an eye out. And thanks again for coming out to the Mile 99 interview. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks with another guest and some more inspiring stories. And thanks again to everybody tonight. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys.